Hello and welcome to MotorInc First. We are back and Karthik's been driving the new Safari and the Harrier, which remain brothers and sisters of each other. And I believe they've been facelifted and he has driven them extensively, right? Means.
It was a day, 2 cars to drive. I did about maybe 130, 40 kilometers with each. So
Well, that's not insignificant. It should get you an idea of what the facelift is.
it was actually more thorough than I expected because I had to deal with a lot of Pune traffic with both the cars getting in and out, getting to a highway. And so yeah, I did get real world conditions.
Okay, let's begin at the beginning. What have they changed?
What have they changed? The appeal.
No. First engineering, then marketing.
Oh,
Please.
first engineering.
Please.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we're not a manufacturer, so we are not marketing first. We are engineering first.
So when you look at it, before going in for the drive, I was frankly underwhelmed. I was thinking there's nothing that's really changed on this. It looks different and it's fancier and all of that. And if you do look at it on paper, it feels very minor. It feels like a facelift. But once I drove it, I would go so far as to say that it almost feels like a new gen.
How did they do this?
Yeah, that's the thing. There are some very small changes, but they have made a big impact.
Okay.
Right? So to drive, they're just feeling so much more enjoyable.
Why? What have they changed?
The steering is different. There's an EPS now. They had a hydraulic steering, and when we drove the Safari, we complained about it, saying that, it doesn't work. It's heavy at low speeds, light at highway speeds, too quick at highway speeds. So it didn't fit the nature of the car at all. And that was also kind of holding the car back in terms of what it could do in terms of technology, with ADAS. Also, the experience was not great. So now by going to an electronic power steering, the steering, and Tata does this well, right? They'll calibrate it right. It's not too light. It's just the right way that it should work. So it feels natural. It feels connected. So it steers better. So it automatically feels more natural to drive.
Got it.
And there are lots of knock-on benefits. Because it's electronic, the noise levels have gone down because the hydraulic unit is no longer there. The load on the engine has gone down. And all these are such small things which you will not even factor in when you are looking at it on paper. But driving it, it actually felt so much quieter.
Wasn't there a time when we said hydraulic power steering gives you feedback and all of this, and EPS is just a terrible idea? And have we completely swapped, or did Tata make the hydraulic so difficult that the EPS looks like a shining star?
This is with any technology, we hold on to what we're used to and we celebrate it and ignore, or let's say even talk down what is coming your way. So EPS, I remember, there was a time way back, there would be 10, 15 years ago, when we'd just be like, oh, this car has EPS, and implying that it's crap, right? And it doesn't have hydraulic. And that was when the shift was happening for everybody.
Right.
And I remember the first time I drove the Renault Fluence, and which is why I think Renault are masters at calibration, suspension for one, which they're widely recognized for. But the EPS which is the electronic power steering of the Fluence, if you drove that, you would say, what's wrong with EPS? And way back then. So it's about calibration, tuning how you get it right so that it feels natural, right? When a technology is new, you're learning about it. Even the engineers are learning to work with it. And there's a lot of interplay, right? Suspension, wheels, engine characteristics, how the power is delivered. All of that has to fit into how the steering then works, right?
Right.
So getting it right takes a lot of nuances.
So wait, so if it took 10, 15 years for the industry to figure out how EPS is to be calibrated, how can EVs be good today? Let's come back to the Safari and the Harrier. What other changes did you notice? So you had more fun driving it, clearly, and one of the factors was the fact that the steering calibration is nice, but this system puts a lot less load on the vehicle, so it's just happier.
Right.
What else has changed?
So when I said driving experience, it's also, again, quietness of the cabin. So they say that it has been updated, but what exactly has happened is not clear. One of the things that the engineering team spoke about was all the joins and fixes are now, they're saying they're just better.
Okay.
Right? So they've somehow, I don't know whether it's the ceiling or whatever, but it all ties in better. So this cabin feels much quieter.
Okay.
I drove the Safari. And I was on a state highway, national highway types, 4-lane highway, right? not light traffic. It was fairly busy, not the best of surface, tarmac. But suddenly you realize you're at 120 kilometers an hour, and it's the sound that you can hear is the spooling of the turbo. Everything else, the buses, trucks, everything else is distant.
Got it.
So the cabin itself is better insulated. Now, whether they've done something or not, okay, I don't know, but the effect, I can very clearly say, is distinct. Also, it is better because this engine by default, that diesel 2-liter diesel engine, wasn't a quiet engine, but you can barely hear it in the cabin. Which is why I was saying that it feels like a new gen. In terms of driving, it feels like a more sophisticated experience, a more enjoyable experience. And that just transforms how you perceive the car.
Got it. Okay.
And other than that, talking about the Safari with the red dark, something that was the last iteration of the Safari that we drove.
Right.
It didn't have the charm of the Safari anymore, right? I mean, that ability to travel, the suspension, because it's taller, it's heavier. When they had launched it, the suspension tune was really good. That was one of the things that I remember. It was so impressive that for a car that's this tall, how well behaved it was, and yet felt SUV-like.
Right.
But with the red dark, it suddenly had gone to pieces. Like it started feeling bouncy, jittery, not SUV. I drove the Safari with the new 19-inch wheels.
Okay.
And first going over bumps and ditches, I was avoiding them. I was like, 19s. I'm not gonna go wild with this, right? But the more I drove it, I realized that the suspension is doing its thing. It's back to where it should have been. And even with the 19s, so if you're going over some sudden, dips with the sharp edges, like the nasty potholes, you'd feel that the sidewall is shorter. You'd feel that little thunk, but you felt the suspension work. So by the time I was coming back, the second half of the drive, I was flying over stuff.
But is this standard on all the variants, 19 inches?
So there's a new persona for the Safari. It's called Accomplished. And yes, there is an Accomplished Plus as well. And on that variant, the 19s are standard.
Okay.
On the Harrier, the 19s are also available, but only with the dark pack. So that's the other thing. So remember we spoke with the Nexon that Tata actually revolutionized the dark shade, right? We were dark averse as a country, but they made it something that people are celebrating now, right? Buying it. So they've standardized it on the two models. So you can buy not every variant, but every persona can be had with not every again.
Do I need to say anything at this point? If you've seen the Nexon,
it's not variants, they're personas, and not all personas have dark, but dark is available on many of them as an add-on.
So if you've seen the Nexon ICE and EV MotorInc First, then you know that I have a huge bone to pick with this, and you can clearly see what the problem is. He can't even figure out, and he spent most of the morning doing this, don't get me wrong, but he still can't figure out which one is which and what gets the what.
Okay.
So what has Tata really accomplished?
On that note, last time when we did the Nexon, we waited for the prices to come out. We've done the same this time around for the Safari and Harrier. Can I tell you the prices and give you a bottom line on whether they're better value or worse value? I can't, because only part of the prices are out. So the prices we'll be sharing with you in the comments, and we'll share our judgment on that there. Right now, we have part of the prices.
No, wait. Let me ask you the actual pertinent question here, and I want you to listen to this very closely. How many variants of the Tata Safari were there when they announced the prices, and how many variants of the Tata Safari have appeared since they announced the prices, which is a day and a half ago?
Day ago, yeah.
So a day ago, as we're recording this, it's a very, very interesting question, okay? There were some variants, and now there are some more variants or other variants. Please explain this to me again.
I'll tell you what happened. It'll be simpler than me explaining it. So at the drive, we got a brochure of both the cars with the variants being listed and their feature set. And yesterday when the cars were launched, when we saw the prices, those variants were not there. Not all those variants were there. So like the pure O was not there. There was a pure plus, or there's just a pure whatever, right? Basically, the variants that we'd seen in the brochure did not exist now. Now there were newer variants. So basically, between drive to launch, they've rejigged the lineup.
Does that sound like a confident manufacturer to you, or a manufacturer that is so worried about sales that they can't even understand how many packages the car should be sold in? I'm sorry, but I get confused. Look, to me, if you give a human being a choice of 2 items, they'll usually pick something, or they won't pick anything at all. You give them 3, it's not so complicated. You give them 10, There's no decision coming. You remember before Swiggy, we used to all maintain a little menu book in the house which would have paper menus.
Yeah.
And how many menus would you actually collect?
Correct.
Right? So if you lived in a popular place like Bandra or Andheri in Mumbai, you'd still have maybe 30 brochures. As soon as you eliminate the Chinese, that's down to 8 options or something. It was easy. Swiggy has made it convenient to get home, yes. Has it made it convenient to pick what you'd like to eat next?
Yeah.
This is the same thing. I don't know why you need this much confusion. Have you got prices of all the Safari variants at all?
Not yet. Yeah, that's exactly it.
I don't think this is a plus. I think this is a minus.
It's like we discussed even with the Nexon, right? Is it concerted chaos? I don't think so, but it's chaos.
It's chaos, yeah.
It's chaos. They are, like we said, they are trying to do more. They're biting off more than they should or could chew off, and which is why these things are getting dragged on and these things are being rejected. And that's not great, for sure. I mean, if we don't have clarity right now, it's going to be very hard for us to impress the same. I mean, we'll be sharing the same sense of confusion with whoever we are talking to.
Yeah.
Right? And that's not a good thing for sure.
Yeah, we love sharing confusion with you guys, as you've seen from our channel so far. Okay. So, is that the whole picture of the Safari?
No.
There must be some new screens, right?
Before we get to the screens, I have a pet peeve, and that's I'm really pissed off because I had hoped with the facelift, the Safari and Harrier would be separated further. You know, the Harrier and the Safari from the front looked the same. So I thought the facelift would be the time where the Safari gets its due and gets its own distinct visual identity. But it's pretty much the same. I mean, there are differentiations, but they are so subtle that if the cars were standing 40 meters down the road facing you, would you be able to tell at a glance which is different?
The Safari accomplished is bright green, and the Harrier accomplished, I'm sure, is bright pink. So where is the confusion?
Yeah, so they've done it with the colors now, right? They've gone with colors and slight design details like, you know, sharper lines for the Harrier to make it more sporty and the Safari more stately. And this was the conversation that we had.
If you check the link in the description, I'm going to leave you a link to a PDF we made so that you can how to tell the Safari from the Harrier when you're out on the road. Please take a printout and keep it in your car so that this confusion never occurs to you.
So Martin, who heads global design for Tata, and Ajay, who's heading the India studio, we were talking about the same thing. And I just asked them one thing. How many Safaris do you sell for every Harrier? Right? It's 3 to 1, right? I mean, more Harriers being sold.
3 Harriers to 1 Safari.
Yeah, 3 Harriers to 1 Safari. Which is the bigger name?
Tata. Harrier. Clearly. I mean, because in India, sales is the most important thing. Who cares about brand names, right? So if Harrier outsells the Safari 3 to 1, then the bigger brand name is clearly the Harrier.
Whereas it should be the Safari. It should be the other way around, right? And it's interesting that now when they have distinguished the two product lines, they have positioned the Safari as the more mature guy's car, right?
But this is marketing. In the sense, in the ad, you will see a more mature person, whereas the Harrier will look like a more youngster type of thing.
Right, which is why the colors are that way and all of that. Right, because they found that there were more older guys buying Safaris.
So let's reiterate what the crowd seems to be doing rather than think about, is that the right thing for the Safari to be doing?
My takeaway from that is that the older guys buying the Safari are the guys who were kids when the Safari came out. They were at that young, impressionable age who saw that Safari back then and said, one day, ek din Safari lunga.
Got it.
Right? But what is being done for the Safari today? That the next generation will have that yearning to buy, to say that ek din Safari lunga.
I think you're overthinking this, Kartik. See, the very simple thing is, youngsters simply haven't had the time to produce the larger family you need to exploit a 7-seater.
Ah, okay.
So the older guy simply has had time to have more kids. Therefore, 7-seater, whereas the youngsters will get a Harrier because they haven't had the time to play India's favorite sport yet.
Oh, man.
Okay, no, but I see what you're saying, right? When I think I was just beginning in journalism, or before that, I think the Safari name came out and it was a big deal and it was a big event for sure. And do I see the combination of Safari Harrier as a 5 and a 7-seater today, and then recognize that the Safari has a history and nostalgia to it. And the Harrier, to me, is a vertical takeoff aircraft. It has nothing to do with a car at all, right? No, I don't. Honestly, I don't. And I think it's a missed opportunity on that sense. So I agree with you there.
Yeah. To me, the Safari sells the Harrier. It's as simple as that. The difference is just 1 lakh rupees between the two. They look the same. The feature set is
And
practically
if
the same.
you're paying 1 lakh rupees more or less and getting 2 seats less in India, I think there's something fundamentally wrong with the positioning of the Safari. And as you're saying, the delta between the Safari and the Harrier does not compute as products and as propositions.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean that's it for. I'm going to stop here. Let's get back to the product.
Yeah.
So yeah, there have been changes mechanically. The chassis has been upgraded, and as everybody knows already, it's got 5 stars. This car hadn't been
It's got
crashed.
5 stars at Bharat New Vehicle
No,
Assessment
this is
Program,
still done at Global NCAP.
which is the same thing, right? It's the same test.
Their standards are pretty much the same.
So if Tata were to send this car to the Bharat New Vehicle Assessment Program, you'd also get essentially the same rating as Global NCAP. This is for a few people who ask this question, saying, when is Tata sending it? To me, it is irrelevant. If Tata were to send this to Euro NCAP, then there is a fundamental difference in how G NCAP, B and V NCAP, whatever,
B NCAP.
and how Euro NCAP tests. Euro NCAP is much tougher. So that is a difference that I would like to keep an eye on. But G NCAP to Bharat New Car, same thing.
So that has been upgraded. They've packed in more safety equipment as standard. So you're getting 6 airbags. You have 7 on higher variants, which is a knee airbag being added on.
Is there a digit for it? Like Smart S was sunroof.
No, there's not.
Plus is the larger screen or something.
No. So no, I don't know. I don't know if there's any more. There's an S, a plus, and an O, whatever. Back to the machine. So they have done a good step with the base variants. So now the base variant itself is a great starting point. Alloy wheels, 17 inches, not 16s, standard. Project LED headlamps, standard. 6 airbags, TPMS, standard. So it's a car that's packing a lot. The only thing I think missing in that one is a reversing camera and a music system. Other than that, it's a car that you could drive home
Right.
comfortably, easily, right? For both the variants. And the price has gone up by 30, 40,000.
So not too much.
Yeah. So at the base level, what they're offering is substantial. It's a significant upgrade because it seems to be a viable product, and you upgrade it with the couple of things that's missing, and it won't cost you all that much.
Understood.
So
Is it the same kind of value proposition at the top?
at the top, now, as you know, all the prices aren't there, but guesstimating using everything. So the top spec price that has been shared now is for the manual, which is about 30,000 more than what was the red dark earlier. But if you choose the automatic, that means the price goes up by another 1.3 lakhs. Right? And if you choose the dark, that's another 1.3 lakhs. So if you're looking at the Safari, you're talking about under or about 28 lakhs.
So the competitors to the Tata Safari are now from the Wagoner to the G-Wagon.
Wagoner kaise?
I'm just trying to understand this because this seems to be like spreading, right?
50.
There used to be a time when the cheapest car was 5 lakh rupees less than the most expensive one, and it was not very hard to decide. But I don't think that that's the case with this.
Yeah, look at this. I mean, in the sense that you'll see a spread of 15 to about 28 lakhs. So that means 13 lakh price gain. I mean, going from the base to the top. So that really is crazy. I mean, how do you choose who's going to buy one? It's a
By the base model, 13 lakh rupees will buy you an excellent super bike. I'm just saying.
Okay.
So that's the Safari's picture. Or do you have the interiors you want to do together, or there's enough difference that you have to do them separately?
No, I'll do them separately as well. But just quickly on the hardware front, still no all-wheel drive, of course.
Why not? There's a question from viewers also, so I was going to ask you this at the end anyway, so you might as well tell us why no all-wheel drive on the Safari? And
Tata has always maintained that the demand for the all-wheel drive is too little, so they don't see any point in investing in it.
So the guys who are commenting are not buying, and the guys who are buying are not asking for it.
Yeah. Very few people really buy an all-wheel drive machine and then end up using it. And it has those terrain modes and all, and with that, the ability is good enough for most people rough roading.
But this platform can handle an all-wheel drive platform if needed.
It's the JLR platform, right? So that platform was first decontented to make it
Palatable.
priced right for India, right? And of course, all-wheel drive was also not offered because of that. Today, they've added some of that back in for this crash test safety and performance aspects. So you're using that. So that's a capable platform. It has used all-wheel drive. It has been a 5-star car back then for in crash tests. So you're seeing that being offered here. All-wheel drive, it could easily do it. The other thing was a turbo petrol engine, which has been under development for some time. It was showcased at Auto Expo. It was a 1.4. It became a 1.5. That still hasn't come.
So there is no petrol option yet on the Safari at the Harrier?
No.
Because that's another question that we've got. Somebody asking, they drive 200 kilometers a week roughly, and they think that they should be getting a petrol, but where is the petrol?
Correct. And petrol would make sense for a lot of people now, especially with diesel, the emission norms tightening, the resale value aspect, and just how long can you have one? A lot of people see value in petrol. They will, any petrol engine in a car as big and heavy as this, the efficiency is not going to be great. But if you are a light user, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so just to set a little bit of context here, when Honda dilly-dallied with their diesel engine and they only had petrols in their lineup, while there was a big price difference between petrol and diesel, I think they're still suffering the after effects of that. So I would strongly encourage Tata Motors to get this petrol thing going and plug this gap, as it were.
Yeah, and there's of course the talk of the EV as well. So that will also be interesting when it happens.
What would they name them? To me, it is Safari with a big E at the end, right? That's Safari, electric vehicle Safari. Harrier, I don't know. Harrier-y sounds terrible.
I think they're just going with .ev.
How boring, yeah. So the same company that does 82 million personas and has a price span of 13 lakh rupees can't imagine naming their vehicles more than adding a .ev at the end.
Okay, back to the cars, right? So I drove the Safari with the 19-inch wheels,
Right.
And I got to tell you that this is the car that's supposed to be the more mature, the more easygoing of the two, right?
Right.
But it felt the more enjoyable of the two to drive.
Okay.
Because if you see on paper, the dimensions have changed. It's wider, it's taller. That's just down to the wheels. Because the wheels have pushed the track, the width by 30 millimeters, right?
Got it.
And because of the larger diameter, the height has gone up. What you feel that on the road is two things. When you turn this car now, you feel connected to it. It feels enjoyable when you do that. And at high speeds on the highway, it just feels so settled. Like they're saying 120, even 130, 140 was, you didn't realize it.
And this body roll and all that around?
It's so well controlled. What they have arrived at with the suspension setting with these wheels works. It works really well.
But this only applies for the moment to the 19s because that's the only Safari you drove.
Correct.
So we're not exactly sure how accomplished the non-accomplished models are.
So we did drive the Harrier, which was on 18s.
Okay.
Right? Now that's the funny thing. The Harrier, according to me, should have been the one with the 19s because it's meant to be the sportier.
Yeah, the smaller, sportier car, right?
Right? But it was the one on the 18s. And there you could see that the ride was, it's even better, right? With the taller tires, it just soaked up stuff so nicely. And the steering now being nice, it felt more enjoyable. You could have fun with it, right? It is a heavy car. So earlier you could feel it with the steering. Now it feels far more connected, a lot more enjoyable.
Right.
Right? So with the Harrier, I would have liked to drive with the 19s to get that sense of the wider track and how it feels.
Is the model there? Is there a 19-inch model?
Yeah, with the darks.
Oh, the darks.
The dark comes with the dark comes with 19s. And the design for the alloys on the Safari, the 19s, those look really cool. So they've got some really cool designs for sure. And the cars on the whole look good. They are looking different from everything else. The way they've upgraded the cabin. If you look at the XUV, which was setting the benchmark in terms of equipment, in terms of the sense of sophistication in this space, now Tata's taken the lead on that front. It's a very clear difference.
So now I think we're clearly switching from the Safari to the Harrier. So you said it's more fun to drive. You drove the 18-inch wheel version and you were impressed with the suspension and the handling.
Yeah.
What else?
The engine. So the Harrier was offered with a manual transmission, whereas the Safari was the automatic.
Right.
Now the automatic's always been smooth, quick. Now it has paddle shifters, which don't do much, really. I never had any complaint with the automatic. It's game for everything, right? You aren't looking to thrash these cars for everything, calm and quick. It does the job, right? The Harrier we drove with the manual transmission. There, you got to appreciate the engine again. I'm not kidding. I was shocked. That engine's pulling from 700 RPM.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and it's smooth, it's clean. So it's not like you feel the need to keep changing gears, right? Even though the clutch travel is, you have to get used to the clutch with the manual. It's not that it's heavy, but it's just that you got to really push it in.
Could
So
they have tuned that further, the clutch, you think?
I think they definitely need to get the bite point right. Bite point is basically where you feel the clutch engaging when you release it. Ideally, you'd want it to be somewhere in the middle so you have good control over it. If it's too far away from you or too close to you, it's hard to modulate. With the Harrier, it's towards the top. So again, to get the feel right, it takes some time, which is why I said you have to get
Understood.
used to it.
Is there a dead pedal now?
Whoa, I don't remember, man.
Because there's questions about saying, will they finally give us a dead pedal? So I'm assuming that the old ones didn't have one.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't think there is one.
Yeah, so there was a complaint from somebody saying that why can't Tata give us dead pedal?
Oh, I'll check my pics. But yeah, I don't remember about that one. But I did enjoy the engine. What I did realize, it reminded me that this engine is noisy because with the manual you can rev it higher. So it goes to about 4,800 RPM. And when you rev it that hard, you can hear the engine. It goes, but it's better under the 4,000 mark, right? Like with the automatics. That's why, to me, this combination, like I said, felt more substantial than a facelift.
Got it.
It felt like a car that is going to appeal to people a lot more. And people will put their money down for this.
Got it.
The question that I get stuck, not the question, the point that I get stuck with is, and which I spoke to even Mr. Savarkar, who heads product for Tata, right? Was that when does Tata get to a point where people don't have to worry about consistency?
I was going to ask you this next, yeah.
When do they get to that point? Because as much as people like to diss Maruti for being whatever cheap and flimsy and whatever that, they don't stop working, right? They keep going. I think that is why people have that trust in Maruti, right? That it will keep going, right? Safari that I drove, the steering boss was not aligned. It was, so I'm driving straight and it's like
And
this.
I think it's happened to other people also, because I think on my social feeds,
also,
on my social feeds, I saw various other people's feeds also with the...
yeah. So I was also surprised by it. And then the shroud for the steering column was not fitted properly. And coming to quality and consistency of things, the ADAS system, which is now upgraded, right? Because now there's an EPS, they can have lane keep assist. So basically you can keep your hands off the steering wheel, it'll steer the car for you.
So you can be on the phone and the car will just follow your lane.
Yeah, stupid Insta stuff, right? But that feature is not enabled yet. That will be done via software later.
Okay.
But the ADAS system as is, to me, doesn't feel refined enough, right? It's not a system that I will rely or depend upon as default. Very few systems have been that good for me. And this is not close to that.
Understood.
Right? So getting those details right, getting that finish right is, I think, super important. And with these cars, people will come to Tata showrooms. They will put their money down. But when they experience these, and many people may have forgotten, or many people will not believe that these issues can happen or could exist today. Right? But when they do, they will feel the frustration.
Yeah.
Right? And that is the concern. I think that is the biggest worry for Tata.
See, remember about 4 days ago, we had asked our audience saying we're recording MotorInc First on the Safari Harrier and the Scrambler 400X together. And we got a huge response from that. I have a summary of what we need to ask. And the niggles question is there. And it appears again and again on the Safari thing saying, will this be niggle free? Will I be able to just drive it? Will I have to struggle with it a little bit or not? So genuinely people are concerned that Tata Cars' longevity in terms of how frustration free the experience is. It's not a reputation that's been established yet. So what did you hear from them about what they've done to...
So they're saying that this is something that they are working on. And I said, is there a timeline to when Tata will say that this is done? I didn't get a fixed timeline for that. I said,
no, because I've heard we are working on this also for many years now. I mean, I'm not being facetious about it, but I'm very clear about this. We have heard not just Tata Motors, but other manufacturers who have these kind of niggling quality issues that remain saying we are working on it. We are never promised a deadline. And we don't often see a great improvement either. I know that we should give Tata the benefit of the doubt, and I'm not taking away from that. But this is an argument we've heard before. So the only thing I think we've not spoken about at all is the updates to the interiors of the car. So what have they done?
right. Talking about the interiors, I think there's a point to be made. We are talking about consistency of quality, right? Because if you see the quality of the cabin that Tata has created for both the cars, it is so impressive, which is why I said this is the car that's now setting a benchmark, right?
For Tata or for the
For the segment.
Oh, really?
For sure. There's nothing else that is going to
So
come.
previous to this would have been the XUV 700.
XUV 700, but then Tata with the red dark also took things up, with the new finish for the seats and ventilated second row seats. So they've done it again. The dashboard design is effectively the same. The structure of the dashboard is the same, but they've reskinned it. So the Safari, for the accomplished persona, it has formal looking wood, pinstriped wood finish. It looks really good. It looks good. Whereas for the Harrier, the inlay for the Fearless Plus is in yellow, bright yellow. So they've changed the design around.
Oh, the Fearless is the top Harrier. Sorry.
Yes. And also there's an adventure on both.
Huh?
Yeah.
You said there was a dark on both.
No, so dark is a pack. Adventure is a persona.
Below the Fearless and below the Accomplished.
Yes.
So if you have... So when you get beyond adventure, you can be fearless or you can be accomplished.
Yes. I love this. It's like his expressions are my internal state. Anyways, so they've got these different finishes and they've shared images of their other personas. And again, the base variant, they've got this beautiful gray fabric for the seats. Looks really good, right? So they've done things to make the experience rich right from the base variant. The design looks good. And on these top spec variants, you're getting the kit from the Nexon EV, which is that 12.3 inch.
I was going to say, which of the screens that we have seen before has the Safari?
So all the screens on the Nexon EV are here.
Okay.
You even get the rotary selector for the off-road modes, which looks cool. It's big, chunky, and has that display on it. I never used it because I was only driving on tarmac.
And you were driving a two-wheel drive, front-wheel drive car.
Yeah.
Not to mention.
That too. So...
the Alto also goes off-road, but it doesn't have a rotary selector at all. You just go.
How does it do that? Dude, that'll be an accessory to have in the Alto. You just put a selector there. It just changes the images that are shown there.
It will say sand, gravel, snow, Lord Alto.
Lord Alto. So they've stepped it up on the cabin. Already, I think they were doing a great job. But now you look at the soft touch materials, dash top, the lower section, looks really good.
And all the icons are color-coded to the personas, just like they did with the Nexon. All of that is still happening.
What? Okay. I was like, what icons? The themes.
Themes. Sorry, themes.
Yeah, so that's there. But it's basically, if you've seen the Nexon and Nexon EV.
Is the dark pack going to make all the icons black on black so you can't click anything?
I would love to see that. So all the good things from the Nexon and Nexon EV are carried over here with the screens.
Right.
And also the bad things. I still think that the UI, UX is not great. Not very readable for the instrument cluster for sure.
So all the screens that we saw on the Nexon, everything has been moved over, themes have come across.
So basically everything that we saw on the Nexon EV in terms of the screens, the Nexon EV, no, that's not there. That's not. Yeah.
If you don't know what this is, you should see the Nexon MotorInc First.
Yeah. So the infotainment screen is that 12.3 inch screen. The driver's instrument cluster.
This is the one with the smaller bezels than ever before for
Yes. That's also on the 10, but this is also on the 12. And the driver's instrument cluster is also the 10 inch screen. And like on the Nexon, it looks awesome. And you have all the connectivity with your smartphone, Apple Maps if you're using an Apple phone, and Google Maps if you're using a Google phone. But all the shortcomings also are carried over. I don't think readability is good. I find it a bit cluttered. Not really great to read, to find what you want easily. But I'm sure they'll figure it out.
Old people always complain about readability, right?
Maybe I am getting there, man.
No, that's not what I meant. The Safari, as the older gentleman's car, needed to have more... Why would you take this on yourself?
Because the Harrier also has the same screens.
But they're youngsters. They'll be able to read, I'm sure.
Yeah. It has, it plays tricks on you also. It's got like invisible numbers in the sense that only when the revs increase do the numbers light up.
So until then the rev, that's a dark pack.
No, it's not.
That's why it says dark until the revs come up.
It's not. But anyways.
No, it makes the Taco an adventure. And now you can fearlessly rev the engine as much as you want because it'll only show you the information you need to see.
I'm not going to smile, okay? Just keep looking at the camera.
I'm just trying to infer why they turned the tachometer off. And clearly I can't figure it out.
It's cool.
So this is on your driver's display, where it can be taken over by the map entirely, like you said on the Nexon and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Is it a responsive system?
What do you
So when you swipe, when you click, is it a quick system?
The systems are quick. The infotainment screens work well. It's cool. It's crisp. No issues with any of that.
Right. Just readability?
Yeah. And of course, now they've always worked with JBL and Harman. So now they have what they call as the third generation system. New software, new hardware, and it's a really rich sound.
Yeah, on the Nexon, I think you were really impressed with the music system.
This is also, I mean, I think, again, they were asking about feedback about the system. And I said, yeah. So they're like, what? Like, because you've already set such a high standard. Now we're used to that as the standard. So is it as good as before? Yes. Is it much better? It's hard to tell because it was pretty good.
So did you see the Top Gun trailer in the Safari?
Because this doesn't get arcade.ev. So you can't play stuff on this one.
Wait. The Nexon, the lower car, gets something called arcade.ev.
Because the electric...
it's on the EV, it's not on the ICE. Got it.
Yeah, so they haven't offered it. So I asked them, are you going to bring it? Wait for it.
So arcade.ice? No?
Yeah, they should. I mean, you can just as easily disable it as you would on the EV.
Yeah.
You could do the same thing on the ICE. Why not? And that's exactly my point. This car is way more expensive than that. Why should I not have it if I am spending money on it?
But there's your incentive to buy an EV, right?
That's the big incentive, right?
Okay, so interiors, you said new screens, new fabrics, new skin for the dashboard, which looks great, including something called wood pinstriping. We'll put a picture, so this should not be a confusing thing for us. What else has they changed?
So there is some structural changes. So the front seats have actually been moved back by about 35, 40 millimeters. Because, taller drivers used to have this issue of not having enough legroom. They would always have the issue of hitting the dashboard or the center console. So they moved that back along with the pedal so that it's just easier.
So that's moving the hard points, right?
The hard points would be the structures around which the vehicle is built, right? The connecting bits.
No, so I'm asking you this because on the Nexon, where the steering wheel is this way, you said, it's very difficult to move the seat. But on a Safari, they move the seat back.
Seat moving back is easy. Moving the steering left or right is difficult. Right, because that is about where it goes into the engine bay, where the design of the steering rack, the design of the firewall, the design of the dashboard, everything will have to move along with
the seat, but must remain fixed.
The seat
can't be moved left and right to accommodate the steering difference in the Nexon.
Left, right. Left, the pedals will also have to move then.
You see why I love cars so much.
So they've moved it back. So it just makes it nicer and you feel that difference. So that's one change, which interestingly you might notice in the numbers for the Safari, the boot space has changed. That's because the seats are actually further back. So with all three, the second row down, it eats into the cargo volume. On the Harrier, the boot space has improved because they've done a small but cool thing, I think. They've dropped the boot floor height. They said we had space. So we moved it down. It's gone down by about that much. So it just increases the cargo volume of what you can pack.
We are talking about 2 liters, 3 liters more.
No, it's about 20 odd liters.
Oh, nice.
Because it's a large volume, right? So it going down by a couple of inches opens up that much room, right? So how usable is it in real world? I don't know. At least it'll be as good, if not better, right? So on the downside with the Safari, boot space with 3 rows up is still tight. I mean, even one overnighter, getting it in is difficult. It's soft luggage. It's a really small boot. So that way, the Safari, I'm going to categorize everything that can't pack 7 people with luggage, decent amount of luggage as 5+2s. So the Safari is a 5+2,
and if you look at it from the Harrier, then it is a +1.
5+1?
No, just a +1. Yeah, because you pay ₹1 lakh more, you'll get a Safari.
-1 then.
Sorry, -1. So the Safari is Harrier +1, or if you want to look at the Harrier, it's Safari -1.
Yeah.
There's a variant that I could do with.
Yeah. So you clearly get the benefits, what it's at. So in terms of the cabin, that's pretty much it, right? The third row is still usable for adults, but not ideal for sure, because you've got enough knee room, but headroom is not all that great. And you do sit low. So for kids, that's fine.
Right.
you've got enough, whatever. All there are, I counted, there are some 8 charging ports, USB A and C, all 3 rows plus extra under the armrest for the driver. So it's got a lot of conveniences like that. Sunshades on both the cars for the rear doors, and I love sunshades. It's very practical. I think for Indian conditions you need them. I love it.
Cup holders in the front?
Cup holders is there, yeah.
Enough or too many?
Damn.
No, because the next one has none.
Yeah, so this must have had, all right, which is why I don't. Yeah, it's there. Yeah, it's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, yes, it's there. Correct. It's after the gear lever. I mean, just before the gear lever. Yeah, I remember now.
Okay.
I ordered McDonald's and I had my cold coffee.
So you have to go around the gear lever to
Yeah, the straw was poking my arm when I was changing gears. So, yeah. But I'd much rather have it behind the gear lever than ahead of the gear lever, because when you've slotted the gear in, often when the cup holder's ahead of that.
You can't even get your drink out, right?
Yeah.
This cup holders is such a big issue for car people. Yeah, it's amazing.
This is like first world problems, like real first world problems. So that has changed. The small things around the cabin, but basically the car, the sheet metal that's there is the same.
Okay.
Right. So on the inside also the space available to you is the same, whether it's in the second or third rows, and of course the Safari is available with a bench seat.
And this was always a comfortable car in terms of the seats and the knee room, headroom, etc. It has always been a comfortable car.
Tata does that really well, and this time as well, sitting in the seat, you immediately feel like, I can travel with this. The captain seat's beautiful, although I do have a concern that if you are a larger occupant, they can feel a bit narrow. The shape of the seat is actually quite aggressive. So I don't know if any one of you are using the Safari with the captain seats. If you have that issue, let us know. At least we'll know whether we're on the right track.
Okay, so updated engines which feel nicer to drive because a lot of the power drop units have disappeared and the whole feel of the car is better. Retuned suspension, which makes both the 19-inch wheels and the 18-inch wheels work really well on the Safari and the Harrier respectively. Interiors reskinned, more modern looking.
Maybe I didn't stress on that enough, but the suspension tune, not only does it make it feel cleaner to drive, it makes it enjoyable to drive. Like you enjoy driving, and these are big, heavy cars. So getting that feel back from them is worth complimenting.
Right. Anything else you'd like to add before I bring up what questions we have? Whatever we've not answered yet.
I think let's get to it.
Somebody has asked if they can retrofit this electric power steering unit into their older Safari.
No.
I'm assuming you cannot.
No.
It's too complicated.
Yeah.
Are there any hybrids being planned?
No. Tata's been clear that hybrids is not part of their game plan.
How far is Tata from becoming a world-class company? I'm not making this up. This is an actual question from a viewer. I don't have the name here with me, but somebody asked.
I think the step to EVs is the gateway to becoming world-class. The quickest, right? Because they're getting their EVs right. They get that. It's a simpler architecture, right? And that's something that they've been able to, straight out of the gate, they've been getting it right with the Nexon. We've seen it with the Nexon, Tiago, Tigor, all of those. And interestingly enough, if you think about it, the first EV that they ever showed was the Altroz EV. I mean, new product that way. But the one they came with is the Nexon. They switched plans. They still created such a compelling product, right? So I think that move to EV is Tata's gateway to really being world-class. The kind of niggles and issues we see right now, are they fixing? Are they moving forward every time? Yes.
Okay.
But is it a closed chapter? Not yet.
Can a world-class company exist with terrible service?
No.
I'm just making a point here. Because the most common comment we get about Tata is, we love the cars, but we hate the service. And this seems to be a pretty universal piece of feedback.
And to be fair, 9 out of 10 times, people will complain about service.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not
It's
saying
the hardest part.
I'm not saying the negativity bias part. Okay, negativity bias exists on the internet, and you're more likely to rant on the internet than you're likely to appreciate something. And I get it. I'm just saying that we do watch all comments. So, for example, in the two-wheeler space, TVS service is called out more often than everybody else, which means there is definitely a problem, at least at a frequency level of TVS, that causes that conversation to bubble up to the top. Everybody thinks Royal Enfield service is terrible, but it doesn't show up in the comments. Everybody thinks Bajaj service is terrible, but you get appreciation for Bajaj, which means they must be doing something really exceptional to beat negativity bias.
Correct.
I'm saying from that perspective, every time we do a Tata story, people show up and complain about service. But this is not true for, let's see, Citroen. I haven't heard. Okay, Well, we can say Citroen doesn't have that many customers, so who will complain? Fair.
Right.
Maruti?
Take Hyundai. People actively come out and speak that, that we would choose a Hyundai because the service experience is something that's consistent and stable for us.
Yeah, so I'm saying I do notice that there is a uptick whenever we have a Tata story or we're discussing our Tata, people saying, "Arey, don't recommend this car, the service is terrible."
Right.
Right? So to me, world class has two sides to it. One is product design and engineering. In the middle is reliability. And at the end is what did the customer experience net over their experience of the car as they lived with it. And clearly on that side is where Tata's two big issues are. One is the niggles and the other is service.
Yeah.
Right.
And just on this note, you will see in the comments, there are people who are saying good things, there are people who are saying bad things. We always make it a point that you should share more so that it's helpful to other people. So we have done this with people saying that they've had terrible service. We've asked them, which city are you based in? Could you mention the dealership so that we can help others who may be in that city or help that person get better service? If you had a great experience, write that in as well. Give a shout out to that dealer, to that technician, so that next time somebody wants that experience, they know where to go, right? Yeah. So it's important for you to also speak up about this.
Yeah. Last question is about weight change. Has the weight of the Safari/Harrier gone up, gone down, changed?
So again, ground clearance, weight. There was one more detail that I had asked for. These numbers were not shared. Although they seem to be simple and straightforward, but more and more manufacturers do not share these numbers.
Why?
I'm not sure.
What are they hiding?
I am not sure why this is happening, but it is fairly common now to not have these in the brochures. This used to be part of the brochures, but very often the weight has gone up. That's for sure.
Okay.
Right? There's no two ways about it. The weight has gone up because of the equipment, because of the upgraded chassis. The weight has gone up.
Sure.
What's happened to the ground clearance? I don't know. Looking at it, is it something I want to be worried about? I'm not. So do I need to chase it down that, okay, the ground clearance has gone down? If you look at the underbody, there's a little bit of a skid plate of sorts that sits deeper down in the engine bay, which is clearly there to protect, I think, for the transmission or something like that over there, because it protrudes out. That would be the lowest point in the car. But you look at the skid plate, you can bash something with it and you wouldn't have to worry about it. So am I worried about if the ground clearance has changed? Not really. I think both the cars have enough for you to make your way through almost everything that you face.
You're saying manufacturers expecting you to buy an SUV today, but they won't tell you what the ground clearance is.
Ground clearance is also, this number has actually become meaningless for me, right? Because there's...
No, meaningless is one part of it. I'm saying it's a number, give it, and we're done with it. It's not like you're going to change.
Another example on this front, width, right? Width of cars is stated with mirrors, without mirrors, right? Ground clearance is laden,
No, but
unladen.
width is very simple. We drive with our mirrors always closed. So that should be the reported width. What is the mystery in this?
What do we do with the ground clearance?
What do you think people are going to do? Remove the mirrors to make their car narrower and fit into traffic somehow? What? This is just silly.
So yeah. So these numbers in many ways today have become meaningless, right? And for me, you would have noticed with experience how the suspension works, how it sits with weight. All of it changes what the actual ground clearance that you're getting, right?
Anyway, yeah.
So I'm looking at it, whatever we've driven, there's no concern on that front, right? Especially if you have the 19s now, you have that much more ground clearance.
So the Tata Safari and the Harrier have gained about 900 kilos each. And the actual number might be anything, but since it could be anything, we've decided 900 is the number. So,
and ground clearance has gone up by 35 feet.
Yeah, it just depends on how you park it. Okay,
you can say whatever you want.
Okay, so we've answered all the questions. We've summarized the cars. Is there anything else we need to add?
I've done my part also.
UI, UX, adventure, dark, fearless.
Only thing remaining is the prices. I can't help it. Nor can you. Although you can. Can you decide the prices for the Safari top spec?
Yeah, 3 crores.
That sounds like a price and a half. Yeah, that sounds like a good price. Harrier should be, since Harrier is the more popular.
It's 2 crores 99. It's still 1 lakh rupees less.
I think it should be more expensive.
No, it's still 1 lakh rupees less.
Okay, fine.
Okay,
2099.
now this is getting ridiculous, so let's close this off.
Sure.
So that's our report on what we thought has happened with the Safari and the Harrier. If you have any questions for more detail that you need to know, or you have an opinion that you need to express, use our comments. We try and respond to almost all of them if we can, and we get pretty close. And there will be more Motoring First episodes. And they will also always be available on Spotify, Amazon, Apple, and Google as audio only casts if you prefer. I think Spotify also does a video now, so if you want to watch the video there instead, you could. Thank you so much for watching, and we're expecting you to comment.